Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this week's Shadowlands Alpha build really didn't bring a whole lot as far as new content goes, pertaining mostly to Warlocks. It did, however, bring a few changes to Torghast, a few new classes, but the most interesting thing is that they're actually going to be testing all 4 Covenants in Torghast on different rotating days throughout the week. Today, we have Maldraxxus. Today, we have Fleshcraft and Decimating Bolt. Maldraxxus is easily the Covenant that I'm hands down most excited about testing, seeing, just getting into that zone. I guess it's called Necrolord technically. But when I remembered and found out that Decimating Bolt was available for testing in Torghast today, I wanted to jump right into it and make a video on it. And I can safely say it does not disappoint. It's pretty awesome, and it even has some AoE-based implications. So, a quick shameless plug here. I do stream 5 to 6 days a week on Twitch. All week auras, profiles, add-ons that I have here are available to you for free there. Feel free to swing by anytime, drop a follow while you're there and grab them, or hang out and watch some Shadowlands Alpha gameplay. So let's get right into this, because honestly, like, I'm really, really excited to talk to you guys and show you guys Decimating Bolt, and at the same time, Fleshcraft is indeed pretty cool as well. Alright, now starting off, I want to show you guys how Decimating Bolt first just looks. Keep in mind, I am playing Demonology here, but all 3 specs, Decimating Bolt's actual cast animation looks the same, and it looks pretty awesome. So let's take a look at this. It has a 2.4 second cast, affected by haste, and that is what it looks like. It's pretty awesome. The little white orb that came back at my character there was not actually a part of Decimating Bolt. It's just whatever happens when you break these pots on Alpha. Now the cool thing is, we're actually in Torghast right now. We have 3 stacks of the Decimating Bolt buff, the Shadow Bolt, because we're Demonology here. There are 3 orbs around my character. These indeed do correspond to the stacks of Decimating Bolt that we have. If I attack one of these pots here, some mobs are consuming stacks of Decimating Bolt on Alpha, some aren't. It's just a bit buggy. So if I attack one of these here, let's see if it consumes a stack. It does indeed. I lose an orb. So it's pretty cool. I like the visual effect. It's the most impressive so far, hands down. The Revendreth, Venthyr, Impending Catastrophe visual effect is pretty similar. It's like a red, I guess, like similar animation. But the actual orbs are a nice touch here. I like it. Now, there's also one interesting thing here as well. There doesn't appear to be a display duration on the actual damage amplification you get, buff-wise. But you can see the buff actually just dropped from my character. So there probably is some kind of like internal timer on it, or the actual timer just hasn't been added yet. But for the most part, when you're casting this, you're going to be in combat. It's probably there just to make it so you can't save multiple stacks, go into a boss with 3 stacks. It's pretty awesome though. The visual is pretty cool. Let's take a look at Fleshcraft here before we get too far into the video looking at each spec for Warlocks. So as mentioned, in addition to Decimating Bolt in Torghast today, we also indeed have Fleshcraft, which is the Necrolord class-wide ability. It's a channeled ability on a 2-minute CD that forms a shield of flesh and bone over 4 seconds that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. Channeling near a corpse claims the essence to grow the shield up to 50% of your maximum health. This is most effective against powerful enemies. So I killed 2 mobs here with Decimating Bolt as well. Let's cast Fleshcraft, look at the actual visual effect here, and see how large of a shield we get. Keep in mind I have 24,000 or so health here. This is what Fleshcraft actually looks like being cast. I have to say, it's pretty awesome. You can even see it consuming the essence of the mobs there, in a sense. And the shield is for 7,603 damage, which is, give or take, about 28, 30-ish% of my health. Quick math, Florida math. But for the most part, this is a relatively large shield on a 2-minute CD, and it does indeed say this is most effective against powerful enemies. So we don't really know what the modifier is here, depending on what really constitutes powerful enemies. How much health like non-elite mobs give, or certain mobs with certain health pools give. But for the most part, I can see this being relevant in Mythic Plus. It did indeed seem that it gave us a bit of an extra shield there from both the mobs that are dead. It does say channeling near a corpse. There were 2 corpses here, and the visual effect was draining from both. So I'm not really sure if it's only from one, like if you get a buff from one, even though the visual effect shows 2, or if multiple corpses give multiple buffs. Because if multiple corpses give multiple buffs, it's going to be pretty impressive. Alright, I actually was able to find the exact same mob, just further into this Torghast level. This is indeed a second, I guess third, Dreadsoul Drifter, but I'm going to get in range of this and only try and siphon life from this mob and not these. Now keep in mind, the shield we had last time from 2 Dreadsoul Drifters, at least visually, was 7,603. Let's see what this actually gives us over a full channel here. Once again, this is the visual for Fleshcraft, not Decimating Bolt, but let's be real, they're both pretty awesome. We're getting 23, 45, 6. Yeah, so it does indeed seem that you only get the bonus from one mob around you, whether there's 10,000 mobs at your feet that you've killed or one mob. It does indeed seem to only, it siphons, I guess, energy, a modifier or whatever, from one mob only, even though the visual shows multiples. I guess, to be fair, if it did siphon from multiple enemies, this would be pretty overpowered in Mythic Plus. Pull 2 packs, a little target capping, but pull 2 packs, 3 packs, the tank siphons a large shield from all the enemies, and you move on and pull even more. Either way, the visual effect is indeed pretty awesome. It's a whole 2-minute buff. The visual is there the whole time, and the shield is relevant. So, Fleshcraft, for being a class-wide ability, I like it. It's pretty impressive. Pretty awesome. Let's get into Destro, Demo, and Affliction and talk about how it affects each of the abilities there as well. Alright, now looking at Decimating Bolt from a destruction perspective, it's a 2.4 second cast or so that hurls a Decimating Bolt at your target, dealing 2,436 shadow damage, which is actually a pretty good bit, and increasing the damage of your next 3 incinerates by 200%, which is also pretty impactful. It's on a 45 second cooldown with a 40-yard range. So let's do this. Let's tag this actual mob here. It's away from the pack. Decimating Bolt will deal a decent bit to it. Actually, it'll kill it. Let's move on here. So I'm gonna Chaos Bolt this shadow. Chaos Bolt's going to crit. It always crits. You can see we have 3 stacks of Bolt here buffing Incinerate. Watch how hard this Incinerate hits. 1 stack. The Incinerate hit for what, 5,600 or so? The Incinerate hit harder than the Chaos Bolt. It's pretty impactful. Yeah, there's some modifiers and things. Destro Mastery does come into play here, but it turns your Incinerates into Chaos Bolts, in a sense. This is really impactful when it comes to a lot of scenarios. I mean, just even single target-wise, this is pretty impactful. This is pretty big. These actual orbs on my character, like I said, correspond to the charges. They just disappeared. There is a timer that's not displayed here. That basically confirms it there for Decimating Bolt. But it's strong. It turns your Incinerates into Chaos Bolts, and you're already weaving a good bit of Chaos Bolts in the first place. So this being on a 45-second CD is pretty impactful. Let's actually pull a pack here. Here, let's do this. Let's get Decimating Bolt's buff up, put a Havoc up, and pull these 2. Decimating Bolt's buff is up. Grab this. Let's make sure it's affected by Havoc. Yeah, it's affected by Havoc. For 6k. It's really impactful. It's affected by Havoc. Single target wise, it's a big increase. You know, at times in Mythic Plus, yeah, you're able to weave in a few Chaos Bolts into a Havoc window. Yeah, it's alpha. We're much slower. We're on template characters. I have 6% haste. But when your Incinerates hit harder than your Chaos Bolts, how much does it really even matter? And by the way, there's also a subtle little interaction here that I want to get into that's even more impressive than Havoc. So let's talk about that pretty quickly here too. Alright, now in addition to also being pretty strong single target, for a while we've been asking for changes to Fire and Brimstone, to throw some variety, mix up the Cataclysm row. Let's be real here, it's not really a row with any choices on it, you just take Cataclysm. Well, I can say this ability indeed does actually affect Fire and Brimstone. Let's pull this pack here and watch how hard this actually hits when it hits multiple targets. We'll put out Decimating Bolt on one mob here, pet on passive, just to actually get the actual buff up. There it is. We'll pull a few of these, put Wreck on them, pull a few things. Now, Fire and Brimstone is indeed a passive effect, so I'm going to pull a few of these here. Let's cast an Incinerator too. The pack actually just gets decimated, man. This Fog Dweller has a decent bit of health here. It has a little more health than the mobs normally have in Torghast. It's pretty powerful. With it only being on a 45-second CD, it's not going to buff... Sorry, here we go. It's not going to buff every single Incinerate you cast in Mythic Plus. It actually took me a while to realize that Fire and Brimstone is not a toggleable ability anymore. It's just a passive. It's not going to affect every single Incinerate you cast in Mythic Plus. But one of the things that we thought when we saw actual Decimating Bolt initially was that it's pretty much a single target ability, and it sort of is still. It buffs Incinerate's damage, but for destruction, you could have your Incinerate's cleave with Fire and Brimstone. So that's one positive when it comes to an AoE side of Decimating Bolt that I'm really excited to see, I guess, heading into later tuning. Okay, now I do want to show you guys here. At this current point in time, I have the Drain Soul talent. If we hover over Decimating Bolt, it does indeed say that it increases the the damage of our next 3 Drain Souls by 200%. If we end up changing to Death Bolt, it does indeed change to Shadow Bolt, just like the icon did in my bars here. So it does affect both of them. The interesting thing here that I was really curious about, and somebody pointed out on stream, as well as THD pointing out to me, I was curious initially if this affected 3 Drain Soul ticks, because Drain Soul ticks multiple times over a channel, or if it's 3 full Drain Soul channels. I can tell you it's 3 full Drain Soul channels. It's pretty impressive. So I got my combat log open here for you, because unfortunately it's not actually showing Drain Souls like raw damage whenever it hits a target here. But so let's go over here. We'll drain this Drifter down, right? It's hitting for 342 or so, right? We'll cast a Decimating Bolt. Let's drain this thing instead. It's hitting for 1,300 per tick, and it's not even taking a stack away until it's dead. It hits so much harder. And the cool thing is, like, we just drain that shadow down pretty much by ourselves. 4 ticks instead. The cool thing here, at the same time, there you go, that's 3 full channels, is that Drain Soul's damage also is increased when the target drops below 20% health, which is like a pseudo execute for Affliction. Pseudo, there you go. Decimating Bolt on top of Drain Soul's 20% damage increase, or sorry, below 20% health, like 100% damage increase, is going to give us a very real execute. It's going to be a lot of damage. Drain Soul's going to hit really, really hard. And that's not even taking into consideration the fact that each individual tick can crit. It's going to hit really hard. The interaction between Drain Soul's execute and even just the way that actual Decimating Bolt affects the full channel of Drain Soul is pretty impressive. That's not even taking into consideration the fact that in its current form, Dark Lair and also Death Bolt are very lackluster and just not very good on Alpha right now. We could, at this point, I'd probably say your best choice when it comes to Alpha right now, tuning and things aren't out yet, it's probably Drain Soul, though. Nightfall is a contender, but Drain Soul, especially being affected by Decimating Bolt and the Execute Clause being baked in, Drain Soul, in this current form, with the Maldraxxus Decimating Bolt ability, is looking very, very strong at this point in Alpha. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to Demonology, Decimating Bolt doesn't really have any interesting, unique interactions like it does for Destruction with Fire and Brimstone, or even Affliction with Drain Soul being one whole channel, not individual ticks, and also having that Execute Clause built into it. There's not really any talents that affect Shadow Bolt's damage, except for Sacrifice Souls in a sense, and I guess there's a bit of an extra damage amp there, but the final row here is sort of up in the air regardless now when it comes to Alpha, with things changing and consumption, not having Baleful, all that around. So I'm going to pull this mob here. We can look how much Shadow Bolt actually hits for. Let's see. It hits the actual Shadow mob here for 420. Cast Decimating Bolt here. Decimating Bolt killed the mob. We can pull this. We have a 3-stack here for Shadow Bolt buffs. We pull this mob. It's going to hit for probably 1,200 or so. Once it crits, yeah, 1,336. So it's there. It's a buff. It crit. You can see it still hits hard. It's there. It's a buff, but there's no subtle little interaction with Decimating Bolt for Demonology. You can see Fleshcraft consumes both souls here. It's pretty cool, even though it's only the same size shield. There's no real subtle interactions that make it a lot better, like Drain Soul, like Fire and Brimstone for Destruction. But in the end, it still is probably going to be a pretty strong single target ability, depending on tuning. And for the most part, hey, you know, being on a 45-second CD does make it pretty powerful as a whole. So we'll have to wait and see how tuning goes for Decimating Bolt. But honestly, across Demonology, Destruction, and Affliction, I'm impressed. The Fleshcraft ability is relevant as well, and I think shields like this one here that has a whole 2-minute CD are often overlooked when it comes to rating. I think that on a lot of fights in progression, Dark Pact should be taken over Burning or Demon Skin if Burning Rush is irrelevant, but most gravitate towards Demon Skin for some odd reason. Shields are relevant I'm pretty excited about the Maldraxxus Necrolord Covenant for the most part. I'm excited to see where it goes, but Decimating Bolt certainly is impressive in a wide array of scenarios. Thanks for watching, guys. I really hope that you guys enjoyed seeing the Maldraxxus Covenant ability a bit ahead of schedule here, and hopefully you guys like the way it looks and feels and plays and everything as much as I do. I have to say, we've been asking for some Fire and Brimstone changes, destruction AoE changes for a while, and while it doesn't necessarily alter Fire and Brimstone's based on toolkit, there's still issues there. It is pretty cool seeing that subtle little interaction there, because for the most part, Decimating Bolt was thought of as a single target ability versus other ones like the Arden Wield Night Bay one, I believe it's called Soul Rot, being more AoE based. So it's pretty cool to see that it has single target implications as well as AoE ones. If you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons. It helps out a lot. And once again, any Week Warus profiles or add-ons you'd like, they're on my Twitch. Feel free. I'll link it somewhere down here below. Feel free to swing by and grab them anytime. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below as well, and I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Thanks so much, dudes, and I'll see y'all again soon on stream. Peace.